Hare Krishna, Malati Devi. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Please accept my humbly offered obeisances and my appreciation for this wonderful service you've been doing the last few months, making something wonderful happen even during a very discouraging time. Thank you.
Well, these are very kind words. Of course, it is not me. We have a wonderful team that is working.
Yes.
That team, of course, is called the GBC Strategic Planning Team.
Right.
If you don't mind, I'll just say a few words about that effort, and then particularly the effort that you are starting off with. The GBC Strategic Planning Team is, first of all, trying to help devotees be safe and stay away from this terrible disease. Wearing masks, social distancing, no big meetings in closed rooms, etc. Just being very, very careful. We have had, as you know, some significant devotees, and then every devotee is significant, and they have been either gotten quite ill or in some cases even left this mortal world. So we want to encourage everybody in that safety. One of the things that we're doing, the strategic planning team, is illuminating various spiritual topics. And for Srila Prabhupada's Disappearance Day, we decided to explore and illuminate the basic notions that Srila Prabhupada is ISKCON's preeminent Siksha guru.
Yeah.
And what we would like our audience to do during this period of time is to really meditate on that question. What does it mean that Srila Prabhupada is the preeminent Siksha guru of our movement? And to help them in that meditation on the disappearance day of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, which is tomorrow. Today, tomorrow, and then the next day, we have each day 3 wonderful devotees that have particular insight and realization about what the meaning of Srila Prabhupada's position as Siksha Guru has. And we're very fortunate to start out with you. You are one of the original disciples. You have been serving ISKCON for such a long time. You hold the position of a GBC member, but particularly you have been an advocate for really being close and loyal to Srila Prabhupada. So we're very fortunate that we're starting this series out with you. So thank you so much for, leading us off, basically. I think it would be good if you just started with a few comments about your holy self, just to give our audience, you're a famous devotee, so most people know you, but still, just give us a few brief points about yourself, if you would.
Well, I joined Srila Prabhupada's service, initiated in January of '67 in San Francisco. Myself, my boyfriend, who became my husband, Shamsundar, and we helped get that place together, invited Prabhupada to come. And of notable history, just for a point, he came in January of '67, first time he ever flew in an airplane, American Airlines, from New York to San Francisco with a stopover, I believe, in Chicago. First, during that time, there was the incident where I found a small, colorful figurine in a import store and brought it to my apartment based on the fact that the bottom said made in India. That little colorful figurine turned out to be Lord Jagannath, which set in motion a whole different world for us at that time, and even continues until today. First Rath Yatra in July, and then we were deputed We means myself, my husband, and then I had a small daughter, 6 weeks old, Saraswati Devi, Mukunda, and Janaki, and Jamuna and Guru Das. So the 7 of us were deputed to the United Kingdom with the goal of establishing Krishna consciousness there. And we thought the best way to do that would be somehow to connect with the Beatles, because whatever the great man does, the common man will follow. And somehow or other that happened. And then the Hare Krishna mantra became quite well spread all over the world due to the enthusiasm of George Harrison to make we called records in those days. And then after London was established, was sent to India to begin, in Prabhupada's words, the World Sankirtan Party. He talked about that a lot, and now he wrote a letter, said, now I believe it is the time to begin the World Sankirtan Party. And there was a list of names, 10 names. Myself, Shamsundar, were included there, Guru Das and Jamuna, so then devotees from America, about 10 of us. And at the bottom of the letter, in his handwriting, he included another name. He said, and baby Saraswati. So very sweet. I also spent a lot of time in, of course, England, but then after India, England again, in different parts of Europe. Holland was based out of there, but would go all over. And then began based in France at the farm they had, sometimes in Paris. And then sort of disappeared for a while, low key, no key. And then somehow or other was able to make a good connection with wonderful devotees and slowly started taking on some services. And then in 1990, well, actually in early 90s, I don't know if it was a distinction, I won't use that word, but still I was the only female temple president. At that time, this, wasn't happening. And the ashram, the temple, was in Columbus, Ohio, and without a design, it just happened to be ladies. So sometimes they would joke the Mataji Mandir. But from that point, in 98, there was the meeting of ladies that occurred in Los Angeles. And that didn't occur even without an effort, because when the temple president there heard that the ladies wanted to have a meeting, he didn't want to facilitate it in the temple, didn't want to facilitate it. So, not to be discouraged, a very nice venue was found, and we had support from various persons, and notably Mukunda Goswami. And one of the things, among other things, that came out at that meeting was that there was no law, there was no order that a lady, female disciple of Prabhupada, could not be a GBC member. It's just that it was always men. But somehow we found out, Mukunda actually answered that question. And so from that point, it became planted in our minds that we should make an effort and have a lady join the board. We were trying to figure this person, that person, this person, that person, and we weren't coming up with anyone who we thought might pass the muster, which means the scrutiny of the all-male GBC. And finally, I just kind of casually said, okay, well, I'll try. So that was agreed upon. And I remember clearly that evening before the flight, packing, putting stuff in the suitcase, and all of a sudden my arm was kind of like this. I was holding something, and I thought, what are you doing? I just thought, what are you doing? And then I just go for it. I shook it off, and somehow or other, Krishna bewildered everybody, and I was admitted to the GBC, and that's been my primary service from 98. And I've had the opportunity to have wonderful persons, wonderful devotees in my area, my small area zone. And now I'm not sure how things are going because things are, changing around. And I'm probably one of the more older members now, age-wise. So, of course, I do think, how long should I be sitting there and serving? On the other hand, I realize that Prabhupada wasn't thinking of retirement, and to his final breath, he was serving us. So we'll see what Krishna has in mind, and if it's something I can, hopefully I can be responsible, whether I stay or remain.
Well, you have captured this absolutely tremendous and wonderful life in such a short time. I'm quite amazed. It certainly has created a wonderful picture of yourself. You are known as a disciple of Srila Prabhupada that is firmly entrenched in trying to live Srila Prabhupada's standards and help others live Srila Prabhupada's standards. So maybe we could talk just a little bit about loyalty.
Yes.
What does it mean to be loyal to His Divine Grace, and particularly within that perspective that He is our preeminent Siksha Guru, meaning the Guru of all members of ISKCON?
Yes.
Tell us about loyalty. What does that mean?
Well, I would like to make a little preface here, but that's the whole point, is that exclusive devotion, exclusive loyalty to Srila Prabhupada and his teachings, that's the core and the heart of our movement, or it should be. And in order to have this loyalty to Srila Prabhupada, this devotion to Srila Prabhupada, there's some background to consider. I mean, older devotees, okay, we know all this, but I'm assuming and hoping that there's a whole huge universe of newer devotees. And it's very important for newer devotees, along with the rest of us, to understand a little point about the exclusivity of our devotion to Srila Prabhupada, our loyalty to him. Sometimes it's said that, you ISKCON people, you are too focused, one-minded to Srila Prabhupada, even to the point of being accused of being fanaticism. But let's consider that Srila Prabhupada was empowered by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by Lord Krishna, to do what no other spiritual master had ever done before. Lord Chaitanya wanted his name to be chanted and heard in every town and village. And Srila Prabhupada brought that to fruition, that spreading the message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan mission worldwide. So Srila Prabhupada is not just another name or another photo in the line of disciplic succession of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And many brilliant, sorry. So there were many brilliant acharyas who followed in the line of Lord Chaitanya after his departure. But soon enough, disturbance also issued as well, and many false followers, many false sampradayas appeared in his name. So there was a very great acharya who appeared in the early 1800s, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he was an avowed seeker of the truth, extremely broad-minded personality. And since his early childhood, he pioneered and reestablished the purity and solidified the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That was his goal. Because the whole sampradaya had fallen into such disarray that nobody respectable people did not accept the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And the teachings of Mahaprabhu were largely ignored. So he somehow or other came into contact. Actually, I can tell that, but I know we have a time strain. Came into contact with the authentic teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and eventually found a copy of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which was not easy to do, which you would think it would be, considering he was in Bengal. But that's how deplorable things had got. So when he finally got this copy of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he read it and reread it and read it. And through these readings, you can say he actually had an epiphany, but it was much more than that. He actually received full enlightenment about the role of Lord Chaitanya and understood that he was Krishna himself. So therefore, he was very determined to rectify this situation where his teachings had been polluted, diluted, and lost. And he was assisted by this, in this mission by his son, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And they were a force to be reckoned with, defeating impersonalism, Mayavadis, and reestablishing the Yuga Dharma, the supremacy of the Maha Mantra as the prime benediction for humanity at large in Kali Yuga. So this is where Srila Prabhupada also entered in. He entered into this mood following a so-called chance meeting with his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and eventually becoming his initiated disciple. So we understand from the Antya Lila that the fundamental of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that the fundamental religious system in the age of Kali is chanting the holy names of Krishna. And unless one is empowered by Krishna, one cannot propagate the Sankirtan movement. So right there, you get a little glimpse of the, I'll use the word, superiority of Srila Prabhupada over many, there's many teachers, we know that, and we accept and honor them. But Srila Prabhupada holds a special position. He was empowered, a Shaktivesh avatar, which means, in short, a living entity, empowered living entity sent by the Lord to fulfill a specific task. And Prabhupada did that. He fulfilled the prediction of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, ensuring that his holy name would be chanted in every town and village all over the world. You can say that, like when you have something like the competition, like say the Olympics, and people are out there and they're breaking records, the fastest runner, the highest jumper, whatever. Prabhupada, but those records are meant to be broken. There's a competition. Prabhupada set a record, can't be broken. He spread the holy name and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya all over the world. So a unique distinction to understand that, oh, wait, Srila Prabhupada, an extraordinary acharya. And the ISKCON followers developed love for Krishna by strictly following in the line of footsteps of Srila Prabhupada. It doesn't mean that we don't honor, as I mentioned, and respect other teachers. But we are following, we are students, we are followers. Some of us are direct disciples of Srila Prabhupada. So this is not fanatical that we align ourselves strictly and strongly with his teachings. And this is stated by Sri Prahlad in the Bhagavatam, this same allegiance to one spiritual master, 7:19:28, that he was saying, "My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, due to association with material desires, I was gradually falling into a blind well full of snakes. But your servant, Narada Muni, kindly took me in as his disciple, his Siksha, and he instructed me to achieve transcendence." And then comes this very, very powerful instruction. "Therefore, it is my duty to serve him. How could I ever leave his service?" This is a very pivotal instruction for anyone claiming to be a follower of Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada exemplified this exact and precise devotion to his Guru Maharaj. If we have enough time, I can insert a little short story that exemplifies this.
Yeah, we have time. Go ahead.
Okay, so this was in San Francisco in 1967. And from that point, it's always been embedded within my heart. And for I think anybody who was there at that moment, it was so profound. This was following the incident where he had somewhat of a stroke, had been ill, had been taken to the hospital in New York, got out, but still was ill, needed to recover. So they got him a beach cottage in the Jersey Shore, thinking, the fresh air and the sea, the sun would help his recovery, but there was no sun. It was quite cloudy and nasty weather, and the recovery wasn't happening as hoped. So then he came to San Francisco, and the same thing was tried, a little cottage on the shore of in Marin County, in a place called Stinson Beach. And so he was there in a recovery mode. Now, during that time, actually, the first Rath Yatra occurred, and his condition was such that he couldn't come. One of the part of the reason, not only the condition, but it was a really zigzag road, Highway 1, to follow to get into San Francisco, and he couldn't take those curves. So he remained at the first Rath Yatra in the cottage, but the next day the deities were brought over to him for personal darshan, and he was very happy to receive them and receive the news. So because he wasn't recovering, he made a decision, and he called everyone together, and he came to San Francisco, and our little band of newly becoming Vaishnavas was there. He was sitting on his dais. We didn't have the word Vyasa sign at that time. So we used the word dais, and he was sitting there, and he told us that he had decided to return to India to recover his health. Now, Ayurvedically speaking, this is actually quite proper, because in Ayurveda, it is apparently considered the best place for recovery is your home. And in this case, his home was Vrindavan. But why? Because, why you're home? Well, because you're used to the sounds, the smells, the food, the cooking, the people, etc. It's an environment that you're familiar with. So you don't have to spend energy kind of defending yourself in an unknown environment, So he told us that. But then he said, so I'm an old man. I might die at any time. I want you boys and girls to push on this movement. And that was really, at the time, to use an old phrase, mind-blowing, 60s phrase. Why? Because, we knew that mantra. We heard it every day practically. Birth, death, disease, and old age. We heard that mantra. Everybody will die today or tomorrow. We heard that. We knew it. But it was still ethereal. Now, at this moment in ISKCON, we're getting a dose of that. Today, tomorrow, everyone will die. And we're seeing that our God brothers and God sisters are taking their leave, fully prepared, as in the case of Krishna Nandini Devi Dasi. But at that point, it was just suddenly a harsh new reality, suddenly. First of all, he was saying he was an old man. Okay, we knew that, but we didn't consider him an old man. It just didn't seem that way, although logically, he was an old man. I know when I thinking, my God, this is when Srila Prabhupada started everything that we have now because of him. He started at the age of 70. And then, interestingly enough, when he said, we want you boys and girls to push on this movement, for many of us, myself included, it was, what? We're in a movement. We were kind of before these two families, one in distant families, New York, 26 2nd Avenue, and then 518 Frederick Street, San Francisco. And it was kind of us and Swamiji. We weren't so broad-minded to consider the beyond our own little parameters at that point. And suddenly we just got that wake-up jolt. I want you boys and girls to push on this movement. And the thing was, when Prabhupada was present, we felt very emboldened, empowered, if you will, to go out and preach, because that's what he told us to do. On the day of my initiation, which was a couple days after his arrival, then he gave the order to the four of us, now you go out and preach. And I was like, what? So I raised my hand, and how do we do that? And you just listen to what I'm telling you, and then you speak. Don't add, don't subtract.
So is that basic instruction that he gave, which was, okay,
No,
you young boys and girls, you carry on with that movement. Is that not the same instruction that is now being given to Srila Prabhupada's grand disciples?
It's a standing order. It's a
standing order.
But there was one more thing which is interconnected and you can't separate. He was asked if we could bring someone over to help us in his absence, because we suddenly realized we'll be standing there without him. When he was there, even if he was in New York, we could connect quickly if there was something we didn't know, and there was a lot we didn't know at that point. And when we asked that question, he became profoundly silent, and it was sitting very erect. And it was one of those, a moment might be 12 years or more. I think we just like halted our breath momentarily. And then he said, my spiritual master was not an ordinary man. He saved me. If anyone were to come and change even one word of what I have taught you, the whole thing will be spoiled. So he was protecting us and ISKCON from outside influences and inspiring faith.
So for ISKCON to continue as all of Srila Prabhupada's disciples gradually depart, being focused on Srila Prabhupada's instructions is what is going to hold this movement together, yes?
Absolutely.
Talk to us about that.
He taught us how to come to the stage of constant remembrance of Krishna by his own example of faithfulness and purity. He built faith through strong lectures, his honesty, his transparency. There were no scandals surrounding his character. He embodied faith in a world of cheating and disappointment. So developing faith inspires gratitude and obligation towards the spiritual master. And it's experienced through service. So when we accept something from the Guru, and I'm using this, not my just little Guru, Srila Prabhupada, when we accept whatever we have from ISKCON is coming from Prabhupada. So when we accept something from a Guru, a debt is formed, and we are obliged to reciprocate. Actually, this is the meaning of Guru Dakshin, this reciprocation. So following his orders is not sentimental. It's not fanatical. It's essential. Bhagavad Gita 434 is in the purport. Satisfaction of the Guru is the secret of advancement in spiritual life. So Srila Prabhupada's example was so profound that it can be spoken over and over again, so it doesn't get lost, or it doesn't get forgotten, or it doesn't get twisted. Prabhupada's humility was also profound.
So it's actually somewhat typical within the material energy for things to degrade.
Yes.
And we are now 50 years away from Srila Prabhupada's, not quite 50, I guess, however, 45 years?
No.
50. Yeah. How many years since Srila Prabhupada departed? 77, 87, 97, 2007, 2017, 43 years.
Yes, yeah.
How have we done so far? Have some things drifted a bit? Do we have the core rock solid, Or is there some concern that the core is rock solid?
There is some solidity, but the solidity, I believe, and I think others who I discuss this with also feel that. For example, with the GBC, there are some fantastic personalities sitting there. But the GBC is not intended to be a personality cult. From my understanding, we're supposed to be a united force of service for Srila Prabhupada. And just last night, I was speaking with a younger member, trying to find out a little bit how they think about things. And it's just from the top, from Prabhupada disciples on down to the ones who just walk in the door. They feel that they know there's some wonderful persons, but as a body, our leadership is lacking cohesiveness. And that lack of cohesiveness causes, you might say, it goes up to, for some people, even a crisis of faith. Because to be effective, we have to teach and bolster faith in Srila Prabhupada by factually representing him. This loyalty of Prabhupada to his spiritual master was his source of power to pioneer and spread the Sankirtan movement. And if we waver and don't ensure that same loyalty is going to continue, then we can expect to be a diversion in the teachings. So yes, there is strong members, but the collective unity is somewhat not as strong as it should be and as it needs to be.
And broadly, have you found?
I'm not saying that anybody is like some kind of a is not a firm, strong disciple. I'm speaking collectively here.
Yeah, I understand. Each GBC member is a great soul, no question about it. How to find that cohesiveness that you speak of, and that the strength of unity has always been a difficulty in ISKCON, not just within the GBC, but in all of ISKCON. Yeah. There's plenty of diversity, and we need to, it seems, find also the other balancing element, and that is the unity. And that unity means to be unified in following Srila Prabhupada's instructions. Now, one point I'm wondering if broadly our ISKCON members spend enough time actually reading Srila Prabhupada's books and bathing their intellect in their self in his instructions. How do you feel about that issue?
Well, of course, that issue brings on another issue, which I'm not going to jump into, the book issue. Of course, we have to read his books. Prabhupada clearly said that. He said not only read, we have to study. He gave an example, actually. He was speaking with two devotees. One was Tamal Krishna, I think the other was Mahabhuti, and he asked for a quote. And each one was looking to the other, thinking that, he's gonna say the quote, but actually neither one. And then Prabhupada could understand, they didn't know. So he said to them that you have to, because one was saying, yes, I read the books. Prabhupada said, you have to study. Study the books. He said, just like the lawyer. The lawyer studies the law books. So he knows chapter and verse, and then he can defeat his opponents. He said, how are you going to preach if you don't know? And then he said, to take it to another level, then he said, even I read my own books. And then he said, do you want to know why I read my own books? Because when I read these books, I learn something new every time. Do you want to know why? This is because when I pick up my pen to write, Krishna comes and he dictates to me, and I simply write what he is telling me to write. Now, just think about that. What an incredible situation. Take Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaking to Arjuna. Prabhupada's writing purports spoken to him by Krishna. How much mercy we're getting, you know. So when you consider it, sometimes you kind of personally, I'll have this realization of how an unhappy realization of how frivolous I have been and how shallow I remain because I haven't deeply studied sufficiently.
Yeah. So really, to keep this movement going, we have to have ISKCON's members really deeply understand Srila Prabhupada's writings,
At least,
particularly his books.
and specifically the leaders. Not everybody is going to be a Jnani. Not everybody. It's just like in the beginning, we all thought we were going to be like the 6 Goswamis, right? Hour and a half of sleep nightly, different tree every night, a teaspoon of buttermilk. But, we quickly found out we weren't probably going to be like that, even though that was our role model. So different people do have different abilities and proclivities. But Prabhupada's books are so strong and structured in such a way that wherever your level of comprehension and understanding, there is something there for you. But you have to read the books to get it. And
so let's just do a little bit of a wrap up. We're getting a little bit close to our time. I'd like you to just speak a little bit more on this notion of loyalty to our preeminent Siksha guru. What maybe we could just dig a little deeper on that issue. What does that mean to be loyal to him?
It means to follow his instructions and to serve him. Just like that. Without getting into a whole dialogue of what does it mean to follow his instructions. I don't think we have to be overly analytical. Follow his instructions. We can start with the basic instructions.
Right. Chanting our rounds and following the 4 rules and regulations.
I mean, just those things. And I see there's compromises. They're there already on the horizon. I was speaking to somebody the other day and about a person who wants to be initiated, and the person isn't grossly breaking, but they have a coffee addiction. I said, well, he'll probably have to give that up. And the person didn't think, well, it's okay. Well, maybe, except that Prabhupada said it wasn't. I think that we have to be very careful before we tamper with the basic instructions and think that we've gone above them or that we can go around them.
And then to serve him, what does that mean?
It means to follow.
You said we follow his instructions and serve him. So what does it mean to serve him?
Some tangible action on his behalf. It may just be coming and making your obeisances to him in the morning, whether in your home to a picture or to a deity or in the temple, coming to Mongol Archie. That's serving him. Making some internal avowed commitment, speaking to him, something tangible. I mean, my personal practice, is every morning to offer myself in service and state something that I would like to achieve that day, an intention. And at the end of the day, we meet again and in between, but at the end of the day, like you're having a wrap up now, here's what happened today.
So Srila Prabhupada's grand disciples, can they have a personal relationship with Prabhupada?
Absolutely. There are people who aren't even Hare Krishna members who have a very deep personal relationship with Prabhupada. He doesn't belong to us, by the way. We're just fortunate that we have connected clearly by making a commitment to serve him. But
So basically, this notion of preeminent Shiksha Guru means that every ISKCON member has, and to the extent that they then follow instructions and serve Srila Prabhupada, they then develop that personal relationship with Srila Prabhupada through the Shiksha Guru.
Yes. And you can find one disciple, Danishta, asked Srila Prabhupada, how can I know you better? And he said, read Krishna book.
Mm. Mm.
You know, there's so many ways to access Srila Prabhupada, you know, like the media, the tapes and the footage of the, for like example, following Srila Prabhupada series by Yadubar, which is chronological, but then the extraordinary memories of Prabhupada by Siddhanta. There's the conversations. Those conversations are incredible, especially the morning walk conversation where Prabhupada's with his various leaders and they're talking, and Prabhupada will challenge them sometimes to a little debate to see how they're doing, to see how they understand the philosophy. One time, one of them would say, oh, it's so hard, you know, it's so hard. People don't want to take the books. And Prabhupada stopped because it's hard. Do you think people are standing in line to agree with you? You have to learn how to preach in order to convince them. And how does that happen? Again, through studying the books.
Mm. Mm.
So people aren't going to line up to agree with you. So that's an effort we have to make. This movement is a teaching and preaching movement. And on some level, every one of us has to contribute. That's our dues.
Mm.
That's our commitment to Srila Prabhupada, to assist him. So just like we said earlier, the standing order to push on this movement, it's there for all of us. According to our level, there's many levels of preaching and teaching. But
well, I think that that's a really good place to end. Our time is just about up. And just to repeat what you said, to create that personal relationship and then to do practical service to his divine grace, which often incorporates trying to help ISKCON and make ISKCON a better place as well. Of course, I'm adding some of my own comment to your words. I hope you don't mind. It's been really wonderful spending time with you. I've been just feeling great joy listening to you, and I want to thank you for your valuable time. And hopefully, the devotees will have a deeper appreciation for Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day tomorrow as a result of them being able to spend time with you. So thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, thank you for giving me the opportunity to express this sentiment, which for me is not mine. It's something I think we all could benefit from imbibing in our life.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
I guess she signed off, huh?